Welcome to Arts, Work, Life, a podcast from the Association of Performing Arts Professionals. I am your host, Claire Caulfield.
And I'm Jenny Thomas, executive producer.
For the final episode of Season 5, Evolution. To close this best of season, we're focusing on how to stay open to change and new approaches to our work.
You know, Claire, we've been listening again this season to our favorite stories because by looking at where we've been, we can imagine our future.
And we're going to start with Chad Harper, who had to go through a personal evolution before he found his platform. You know, it's so funny because when I interview any storyteller, I often ask with, how did you get your start in the performing arts? And, more times than not, like 9 times out of 10, they're like, I've wanted to do this since I was like 3 years old. It's always been this way. But Chad was different because his childhood was all about sports. I mean, we're talking baseball, basketball, football. He was convinced that his eventual career was going to involve athletics in some way, shape, or form. But then everything changed for him because when he was 15 years old, the doctors found a tumor in his knee. They thought it was arthritis all through his childhood. Turns out it was a tumor. Thankfully, non-cancerous, but it ended his dream of playing professional sports. So Chad picks up his story at that point when he was kind of reevaluating everything.
Music really hit me when I was sitting and healing, and like hip hop music, especially because it was like the hot new thing. This is like mid to kind of late 80s when hip hop and Run DMC and Public Enemy and KRS-One were like this new type of culture. And it also it was like people who looked like me had something to say. I think LL Cool J was like 16 when his first record came out. So it was like, this is the youth speaking, and having a voice. I remember when I first wrote my first rhyme and I shared it to my classmates and they read it and they were like, "You didn't write this." And I was like, "Why would you say that?" And they were like, "Because it's good." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So then instantly I knew, okay, maybe I have something here, because that was the only thing that gave me that excitement, that energy like sports did. And I didn't know music could affect me like that.
After college, he started writing and producing music professionally and founded Hip Hop Saves Lives, a nonprofit foundation that uses music to teach young people around the world about social issues.
I'm gonna use my music to celebrate humanity and social good. That's what Hip Hop Saves Lives does. So I go to different countries and look for different stories and then find hip hop artists to write songs about it and bring attention to it. I was in Sierra Leone in September 2023, and I'm looking for a story. We write songs about everyday heroes. So I was on the beach coming out of a kind of tourist restaurant, and I remember 6 or 7 guys who were disabled kind of surrounded me and were asking me for, give them some money, $1 or, some coins or whatever. I remember making a joke and saying, are you guys a gang? Are you about to attack me? And just being funny with them. And they just shared that, in their country, there are no jobs for people with disabilities. And we're kind of looked down upon and we're kind of outcast in society and there's no opportunity for us. So just to have a few coins to buy some food, this is what our lives consist of, And I was really kind of overwhelmed by that. And okay, this is the story that I want to do. I ended up meeting these 2 disabled rappers that have polio, 50 Dawn and Prophet. And 50 Dawn is a legend, and they were excited to jump on the song and have this opportunity to record with me. Creating this song called Ability, because the guys from Sierra Leone rapped saying disability doesn't mean we don't have any abilities. Hire us to use the abilities that we do have. And then after they recorded their verses, I shared a verse of mine that I had written as well to explain my story. And it was just a wonderful experience, to share with them, because I had never, ever really spoken or written anything about my physical limitation of my left knee. So that was really special for me.
Once the song was complete, Chad's friend recommended they submit the song to the Grammys. That year, the Grammys had introduced a new category, Best Social Change Song, and Ability was a perfect fit. So they submitted, and Chad started campaigning.
I was like, what else can I do to bring attention to this song? And that's when I'm living in Spain. Paris is just a short flight away. And the Olympics and Paralympics were in August. So I was like, I'm going to go to the Paralympics. I didn't know at the time that the Paralympics is now the third biggest sport event on the planet. So I literally never spent so much time on the subway of a city in my life, because every single day I'm like, okay, I'm going to basketball, then I'm going to seated volleyball, and then I'm going to a swimming event, and then I'm going to a tennis event. So you're just all over the city at all these different venues. And it was just amazing. The amount of care that I would say that Paris put into the Paralympics was just phenomenal. It was like a top-notch experience. I'm on the subway and I saw this guy in a wheelchair. I saw that he was speaking English, and I could tell that, okay, that's American English. And then he turned and looked at me, and he gave me this like head nod. And I was like, oh, that's very American, the way he just get like the what's up. So then I started talking to him, and he was explaining that he was going to the opening para-basketball event. And he's like, are you going? And I was like, well, I'm going now. And he's like, okay, cool. Like the next stop, we have to get off. And we get off, and we're coming out of the subway, and unfortunately, his wheelchair wouldn't fit. And I was like, oh, man. But he, stood up and lifted his wheelchair over these, bars and then put it back down. I was like, oh, wow. You can walk. He's like, I can walk. It's just a lot harder to walk, and it takes a lot more time and a lot more effort, but I definitely can't run. And then he told me he was a college basketball player for the #1 college in the States for para basketball. He was like, yeah, everyone who plays para sports doesn't live in a wheelchair. So I went to the stadium with him, and the game was amazing. But the way some of the other basketball players, when they would call a timeout, they would get up and at least 2 or 3 of them would get up and walk to the bench and leave their wheelchair in the middle of the basketball court. And I was like, what? And they kind of walked a little normal. And I was like, what is this? It just kind of shocked me. Later on, I learned that a lot of para-athletes are in the same situation I am, that can walk totally normal and they just can't run. I thought you probably had to have some extreme level of disability to be classified as a para-athlete. I just knew I wanted to be part of this community and support this community as much as possible, because I was so excited and moved by what I saw at the Paralympics. I went to a tennis tournament in northern Spain, north of Madrid, and interviewed about 6 or 7 different para-athletes and got their stories. One guy was actually the very last person to ever get polio in Spain. And then the majority of them, unfortunately, were accidents. But it was just really interesting to get their stories and understand how they coped with their life totally changing. They're like me, where I can walk totally normal, and me walking down the street, no one would ever think that I had a disability, but I can't run. Some days I do have really bum days, my knee really affects me and it really frustrates me. But to just know there's people out there that still have a smile on their face, and they still get up and play sports and travel and live a full life. So that was a really great experience, just to get their stories and compare that to mine. So we're working on a new album. It's a hip-hop children's album, and it's called Everyday Hero. And we're selling everyday heroes and humanitarians from all over the world. And one of the songs on the album is called One Giant Leap. The story is about a guy named John McFall. Long story short, he had to get his leg amputated above the knee. Never let his accident tell him how his life is spent. Not a drop of discontent, he stayed swinging for the fence. I was just so amazed by him. He was 19 years old, such a young age. I can just imagine the level of devastation, but there was just no pause in his spirit. He was on the British Paralympic team competing in the Paralympics. And after winning medals all over the world, he went to med school, became a doctor, and then he wants to be an astronaut, and he's the first disabled person to ever complete astronaut training. And it's like, in this song, I just celebrate his resilience of like going through something so devastating and not even like pausing for a second. One small step for us humans, one giant leap if I can, then you can. When I met those disabled guys in Sierra Leone, that touched me because I know about my own personal limited leg. And I would say, like, if you're a performing artist, look at other aspects of your life outside of just being an artist and see how you can incorporate that into your art. For me, making music is always like the joy of my life, but to do it now with disabled artists and help them have that platform and submit the song to the Grammys and promote it for them, it's just like the icing on the cake.
I spoke with Chad a few weeks ago. Here's our conversation.
As of last year, I travel around the world doing different musical projects, and I went back to Kenya, where the Grammy-nominated artist lives, and also my producer, shout out to Kunta Official Beats, and Muzi from Jabali, Africa, who's the Grammy-nominated artist, who came on our song, Ability, that we had submitted to the Grammys. I visited Nairobi, Kenya in last November. And he was like, this was the first time I met Muzi. So this was the first time meeting him. And he was like, I've got some amazing news. First, he said, I want to congratulate you for everything that you did with the song, going to the Paralympics, being part of this podcast. I joined a disability Rotary group, and they gave me my own music group to make songs with persons with disabilities to extend the work that I was already doing. And he said, I have some great news. He said that he was part of a children's album that was nominated for a Grammy. So he said, I have access to a couple extra tickets as a nominated artist on that album. And because everything that you've done with this first song, I want to extend that to you. So I'm inviting you to join me at the Grammys, February 1st, 2026. I mean, my heart started pounding. I was like, what are you talking about? You're inviting me to the Grammys? Wow. I mean, I can show you the screensaver on my phone.
Yeah.
Which is a Grammy, right?
Yeah.
And I've had that screensaver on my phone for about 2.5 years, just to constantly remind myself, like, this is the goal. This is the recognition that I want to get for the children's music and the music specifically with persons with disabilities, which is like my most passionate music. Now, as I came to the realization from going to the Paralympics 2024 in Paris that I'm part of this community. So that was just, I can't even put that into words.
That's amazing. I mean, it's just, that's a real blessing and full circle moment in so many ways.
Yes.
What is next for Hip Hop Saves Lives?
I'm putting out new music that's highlighting the biggest disability events around the world. And as you guys know, the Paralympics was just in Italy. And we wrote a song called Get Your Tickets to the Paralympics to help people just go out and support these athletes. So me and my songwriting partner from Ireland, we recorded the song, flew out to Italy, in Milan, got tickets to the gold medal match, ice hockey, Canada versus USA. And we were able to get our song played in this sold out stadium in front of 12,000 people.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What a moment.
Absolutely. And
Fantastic.
now we're connected to the head guy who does music for the Paralympics. And so I messaged him and I said, listen, for LA 2028, I want to be one of those like booked artists to perform. Our song is universal. It can be used for the winter and the summer Paralympics. And it was not tied into just Italy. It was Paralympics in general. So he was like, let's make this happen. Let's keep in touch and let's make this happen. So now we're looking forward to performing at the 2028 Paralympics in Los Angeles.
So Jenny, can you tell the audience why we decided to have Chad featured in this episode?
Sure. Chad is changing the perception of Paralympians, but also changing the music industry by shining a light on artists that might otherwise go overlooked.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it's a really happy ending for him, and he has the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and he's also pushing the music industry forward.
That's right.
Which brings us to our next storyteller, who is also working to make spaces more inclusive and welcoming. That's Mari Lee, a storyteller from season 2. Mari does not remember a time before she played violin. Her entire childhood was dedicated to perfecting her technique. At the age of 11, she left Japan and enrolled in an elite music school in the United Kingdom. At 18 years old, she moved to Boston to study at the New England Conservatory of Music. But then in her second year, Mari's father became very ill, and she had to move back to Japan. That's when she realized that she was a total outsider in Japan, even though she was an insider in the world of classical music. This was the first time that Mari really had to ask herself, who am I without my instrument? And does anyone outside of my elite bubble even care about classical music? Here's Mari.
I left Japan when I was 11, and I was there as a 20-year-old for the first time discovering what Japanese society is like as an adult. I come from this marginalized community in Japan called Zainichi Koreans. We're not recognized as Japanese people, so I actually have Korean passport, but I'm not registered in Korea, so I'm a stateless person. And so, that was like one of the biggest reasons why my parents sent me, and I have a brother, sent us away at a young age, because they thought we had a better future outside of Japan. But then I was suddenly in Japan trying to do something to help my family financially, but I didn't have a degree. I ended up working at a restaurant. This was so different, like night and day, from like practicing 8-9 hours a day to perform in some of the most prestigious halls in the world, like Wigmore Hall and South Bank Center and all that, to like washing wine glasses all day, cleaning the toilet and the floor, and the hours were really long. And the employees that worked there knew nothing about classical music, and so it was my first time facing my privilege of having gone through this very elite path. And what I faced there was like a lot of hostility. These people thought, okay, she goes to some fancy school, and classical music is like for the elites. And I wanted to somehow change that, because it's not some like luxury commodity, but it's something that gave me a voice, a meaning. But I realized that I never asked myself these questions about what music means to us, how it can serve the people that live in this world today. So what I did was I created a playlist, and next to each piece I wrote down like why that piece meant so much to me, or like something about the composer that was funny. The people I was working with who never heard classical music before started listening, and they really enjoyed it. And seeing that transformation of, oh, I hate classical music, to like, wow, this is something that I can actually enjoy and I want to continue listening to, that transformation was something I'd never really experienced at first hand, even though I'd been in touch with music my entire life. I worked there just for one semester. I was very lucky that my father recovered and I was able to go back to Boston, and I just realized all I'd been doing was trying to develop my skill as a violinist, really perfect that shift or like a passage, that nobody really cared about, was very much similar to what I was doing at the restaurant, because it was like a high-end restaurant. If there is like a little stain on cutlery or glasses or whatever, like you had to redo the whole thing until it was perfect. And I just found this attitude and process so similar to the way I approached violin playing. People like me at the restaurant who were like washing wine glasses or whatever, we were trying to really perfect our own thing, but collectively we were not thinking about the experience. how people felt walking into the space. And that got me thinking about, like, do I ever think about what people feel when they walk into the concert hall? Doesn't the experience start there already? The first thing I did was really to study music rather than study violin. I took a lot of music history courses, and all of this really helped me think about the larger picture. My younger brother was studying philosophy at college at the time, and he was also like studying history. So I decided to collaborate with him. That was like a moment we reconnected as siblings as well, because we went to different schools in UK. Both went to boarding school, so we couldn't see each other. I feel like we reconnected through the arts, right? And so that was like a very meaningful thing for both of us. So it was just like experimenting with different ideas, and we realized that actually the experience of listening or deep listening is a lot like meditation, but we never prepare the audience to get to that state. Like, you walk into the concert hall from your day-to-day life, and then you sit and you're supposed to be quiet for 2 hours to somehow get to that state on your own. But how can we create an experience that actually helps people transition from like our daily lives to this really deep reflective state? So, we use the ritual of seance to create that transition. And that journey combines this ritualistic element as well as storytelling, and the stories are told by the performers in the room. What's been interesting also is that 80% of our audiences are under the age of 45. So we started in 2015, and we've done, I think, about 5 different programs. And yeah, in the beginning it was very much like we had a piece of music with like some commentary about the context, the historical context. And then now it's very much like more of an experience. So in our most recent production, the production itself is centered around a piece written by Olivier Messiaen called Quartet for the End of Time, which was written inside the prisoner of war camp during World War II. So it carries an incredible story. And then we paired that with origami, specifically origami cranes. So the cranes, when they're folded and threaded together, it represents world peace and hope. We started the experience with an origami workshop, with every audience member folding their own crane. And then we asked the audience members to come and place their cranes on the stage whenever they are inspired to do so, while the music is playing. So we end the experience with a very unique set of cranes representing something unique that we create that in that time. It's not about perfection anymore. It's like, how can I give the most in the moment and really connect with the intention and the energy that's in the music, and how can the other people in the room feel that with me? Music and the arts are essential to human well-being, especially emotional well-being. And I feel that my mission as an artist and interpreter and performer who is living in this world today is to really think about how we can, through the arts, serve people's lives.
Fun fact, I actually recorded this story in person. I met Mari at the APAP NYC conference, and then the next day we found a conference room and I interviewed her.
That's so cool. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about APAP. These connections just happen. But yeah, anyway, Jenny, what spoke to you about Mari's story?
Her outsider status. It really gives her like a superpower, and it helps her understand the barriers that people have and why some people feel unwelcomed in a classical music setting, and really thinking about the experience. She talks about the people she works with and imagines what it must feel like to them entering that space.
Yeah, what really stuck with me with her story was her creativity. I mean, this is one of those stories that I wish that we could have run in full, just like run her full interview, because she was just throwing so many creative, out-of-the-box ideas. Like, it was so hard in editing to just pick one of her amazing examples. Like, I wish we could have run the full hour-long interview.
Well, maybe next season, Claire.
Yeah, for the 200-hour season, stay tuned.
Right.
But let's go on to our next story, which actually is also about audience experience in classical music. But Emily Isaacson takes a different approach than Mari.
I love that we're listening to these two stories back to back. They are so similar in certain ways and yet so different in their approaches.
Yeah, so let me tee up Emily's story, which actually starts when she was a teenager. You might have thought that as a teenager, she would spend her summer Friday nights hanging out with friends or going for a drive. But she did not even bother making plans. She knew where she was going to be. Here is Emily.
Both my parents really loved classical music, so we grew up going to concerts, and it was like church. Every Friday night in the summer, you went to these concerts, no questions asked.
On one hand, Emily loved hearing this timeless music. But on the other hand, she was a teenager. Wearing a fancy outfit and sitting quietly with her parents in a music hall wasn't exactly her first choice.
Just like all of this like rules and etiquette while my friends are swimming in lakes and driving cars, etc. And I'm the youngest person in that audience by 20, 30 years. But also, I felt really moved by this music, but not getting to respond, engage, interact in any way was not my jam. And I felt that really early on, that sort of split, like I love this music, but I don't love the way that I'm being asked to experience it.
That tension actually shaped her career path. Although she wanted to be a conductor, the traditional route of attending conservatory just didn't feel right to her. So she studied a lot of different subjects and ended up earning 2 master's degrees and then a PhD in musicology.
It may come as no surprise to you that there are not very many jobs as a conductor, that it's very competitive, and that it is really an old boys club. And so there's so many more talented musicians and conductors than there are positions for us. So fast forward through my 2 masters and my doctorate, I'm applying to 100 jobs in every sector of music that I can think of.
She was in her early 30s at this point and had 2 young children, and was pretty elated when an old family friend reached out to her.
This man that I had known my entire life was at my bat mitzvah and my wedding, who is a professor at one of the major conservatories in our country, approached me and said, I would like to start a music festival in Maine. Would you like to do that with me?
Emily jumped at the opportunity. He brought prestige and financial backers. She brought fresh ideas. Together, they presented a very successful summer festival. But as they were preparing for their second year, things started to fall apart.
I haven't talked about this publicly yet, but I want to. I think it's time. He started to call me randomly to tell me that I would never be taken seriously as a musician, that because I was a mom, I was distracted, that if I thought that my degrees were worth anything, I was kidding myself because real musicians don't care about degrees, that I was making a fool of myself on the podium. I mean, just you name it, sexism and elitism. And it got worse from that. And I'm not going to go into the details of what gets worse from there, but it got worse and it got ugly, and it was by far the most horrific thing I have ever experienced in my life and made me lose a lot of faith in humanity. I don't want this to be a Me Too story. I'm not worried about backlash from him, but I think that sometimes when people share their stories, that then becomes the only thing they're known for. And it's really important to me that I am known for my creativity and my inventiveness and my leadership and my vision. some of that was developed out of this hard experience, but that I am not identified by that hard experience.
Emily decided to leave that music festival and start her own company. She produced events that brought classical music to audiences in new ways that she would have liked as a teenager. Outdoor shows, family-friendly shows, shows with beer pairings, and even yoga classes set to classical music. Over the years, her company, called Classical Uprising, it became a success, which brings us to January 2023, when Emily attended the APAP conference in New York City.
I was really excited for all the panel sessions with the consultants about best practices and data and the stuff that my organization can't afford to do on our own. And then I was there to network. I was hoping I'd meet some new friends and colleagues who would dream with me. I met somebody who I would have been too intimidated to go up to or reach out to individually, but we had been talking about our projects around the table, and she said, "Oh, you sound like your stuff is really cool. Let's get coffee and talk about it." And so we found a little corner of the Hilton to sit in and to chat, and I was super excited to talk with this person because they're one of the artistic programmers for a major festival, and they had this program called Breaking Boundaries. And I'm like, yes, this is me. I am all about pushing genres and formats, and I'm all about breaking boundaries. And then I said, tell me about this breaking boundaries thing. What are you doing this year? And the person said, women composers. And I was like, okay, that seems like 50% of the population of sexes. So that seems like a little not super boundary breaking, but whatever, benefit of the doubt, go for the ride. And I said, oh, cool. Okay, great. What are you doing the following year? And they said, we're going to do minority composers. And that was just when my heart went into my stomach. And the mixture of frustration and anger and sadness. I think a lot about allyship in these national conversations around race and equality and inclusion. And I think a lot about performative allyship. And to say minority composers, it felt so tone deaf to the conversations that we've been having in our larger society. And, I'm quick on my feet. So I pivoted and I was like, another way that you could think about pushing boundaries is by thinking about who we're performing for, how we're performing, and what are the things that we include in the performance that make people feel either included to be there or more connected to the music than they did before. And I start giving examples from my programs about doing Flight of the Bumblebee, where you do music flights alongside 5-ounce pours of beer, or doing Bach Ben's yoga. Really, here's some this is not lofty ideas. Here's some concrete ideas. And this person could just not understand what I was talking about. That was so frustrating for me because it made me realize that the national conversation and the conversation that I'm trying to have is just ships passing in the night with the way these major classical music organizations are being run and the echo chambers that are happening inside them. I had a couple of conversations like that. I had a lovely conversation with a wonderful man from a big time agency, and he said, listen, I really love what you're doing. I think it's great, and I think it's where we need to head. But I'm sorry, I cannot take you on as an artist because I can't sell you. What you're trying to do doesn't fit into the orchestral world, doesn't fit into the classical music ecosystem. It brought back that sinking feeling that I'm an outsider, I don't belong. And so if this is gonna happen, I'm gonna have to pave my own way. And that is, on good days, an exciting thing, but most days a really hard and exhausting thing. Understandably, our human brain wants to categorize people and things, but that is not helpful. So people want to label me as a woman conductor, and that's my whole soapbox. The other thing is they say, oh, well, the fact that she wants to do, Haydn's creation in a park must mean that she's really not that sophisticated a musician. She's doing it differently because she can't hang with the big boys and the old club and, you know, this, that, and the other thing. Or like, oh, isn't it cute that she wants to do things that are not just for kids, but intergenerational because she's a mom and so focused on being a mommy and mommy music. And it's like, that is not the case. That is not the case. I'm advocating for a different way of presenting and producing classical music so that it is more social and more interactive and more casual in the way that actually it was originally conceived. There's a script. If the people in power, whatever you want to call it, there's a script that's readily available to them to put other people down who don't look like them or have the same background as them. And it's easy to reach for that script of like, oh, you're a mommy, oh, you're whatever, because they're threatened that they don't have the answers. It's just like toddlers. They act up when they feel their space is being threatened. And so if they feel like, oh, maybe that person has an answer that I don't have, I got to shut that person down before they have a chance to show that what I'm offering is not of as much value. That experience taught me that I am so much stronger and braver and tolerant of risk than I ever thought I was. And that just because you're uncomfortable with something doesn't mean that you can't handle it. And in classical music, we're really taught to look up to mentors and to people older than us for verification of how to do things. And this experience taught me, like, so many of the adults I admired did horrible things or didn't say stop it. And so we've got to be those people for ourselves. Like, we've got to be our own advocate. It taught me that I'm fully capable of taking the helm, being the leader, making it my time, making it our time.
Both Emily and Mari really took the helm and made it their time.
Yeah, these are really two great examples of welcoming the new and becoming the next, which is APAP's theme for our 70th anniversary, which we're celebrating in 2027.
But before we close the 2026 season of Arts Work Life, we have one final story on evolution. And it is a full circle story. So, if you will, let's all go back to 1985, when all of America's biggest artists came together to record a song. And when I say big, I mean Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, Ray Charles, Billy Joel, Diana Ross, Cyndi Lauper, Bruce Springsteen, Tina Turner, and the Stevie Wonder. Just to name a few, okay? That song was, of course, We Are the World, which went on to raise hundreds of millions of dollars for famine relief in Ethiopia. Which brings us to Wayna, who immigrated from Ethiopia to America as a child. We Are the World inspired her to pursue music. And so we pick up her story with one of the first songs she wrote as a professional musician. Here is Wayna.
That first project, I really dug deep into my cultural background, and I wrote a song called Slums of Paradise, and it's based on this young woman that I saw the first time I went back to Ethiopia as a young adult when I was 23. There was a prostitute standing on the corner and a young, beautiful girl, and it was just unheard of. So, I mean, in Ethiopian culture, a man can't even walk in front of a woman and show his back to her. That's how deeply ingrained a respect for women is in our community. So seeing that so out in the open just blew my mind. And I imagined what her journey could have been like. And I told the story of what a lot of families like ours went through during the revolution in the 70s when they lost everything.
That's what they say it's like in the slums of paradise.
And then the second verse became about my own relative who was stricken with AIDS. And at that time, there was a raging AIDS pandemic across Africa. And he was just one of so many casualties who didn't get the help he needed, who didn't get the support he needed because there was such a stigma.
People whispering, 'cause it started with a friend, don't waste any of it.
I told the story of these two young people who were essentially survivors of this place that was grappling with so many different terrible challenges, but that came from so much richness and culture and history and triumph to celebrate. And that contrast, that conflict, I thought was so important to tell, and to do it through the eyes of a person who's proud of where she's from, but it's also very candid about what we struggle with as a people and as a government. So that was a special one to me.
Wayna was performing songs from this first project in California. And one night she looked at the audience and the Stevie Wonder was there.
Now, I'm a brand new artist, right? I mean, my album just came out and I was like, what? Like, that was beyond even comprehension, right?
After the show, Wayna met Stevie. And over the years, the two stayed in touch. Then, in 2015, when Stevie Wonder was preparing for his Songs in the Key of Life tour, he invited Wayna on as a backup singer.
I ended up joining his live band for about 2.5 years and had really the experience of a life.
But Stevie, if we were in Ethiopia, we'd probably sing something like this.
Then there was one moment in particular when we were performing at the benefit concert that he does yearly, and Lionel Richie joined him on stage and they started singing We Are the World. When I heard them sing that song, I just thought, oh my God, I dreamed of this as a kid and now I'm seeing this happen right in front of me. This is a full circle moment.
Over the years, Wayna continued to make music with a call to action.
So always loving message-driven music and always being surrounded by artists that make message-driven music. I really wanted to encourage those of us who felt like the industry didn't always value this kind of art, In fact, a lot of artists pay a heavy price for making songs with social commentary in it.
When the pandemic hit, Wayna spent a lot of time listening to new music coming out about the avalanche of social issues. And then she realized there was something she could do to help these artists reach a larger audience. So she teamed up with two friends and collaborators in the industry.
We said, let's write a proposal. Let's help create a Grammy Award for the best song for social change.
Wayna spent countless hours in committee meetings, talking to stakeholders, and drafting the proposal to create a new category in the Grammys.
It was such a long shot. I mean, a lot of people had told us, don't get your hopes up. And I had plenty of moments up in my office where I was just plugging away and thinking, am I going to end up being more discouraged after this than I started out?
But her timing was right. First Lady of the United States, Dr. Jill Biden, presented the first award.
Tonight, I am honored to announce the first winner of the Recording Academy's Best Song for Social Change, to Sherbeen Ajapour.
We had another pinch me moment at the actual Grammy Awards when the First Lady presented the first award to the first winner, who had written this incredible protest anthem for a young woman who was killed in police custody in Iran for not wearing a hijab. So it couldn't have been a better first awardee, and there were over 120,000 submissions of that song in the category that year. So it just became its own thing and became a voice for people who were under persecution and not being heard, and that was exactly what the three of us dreamed it could be. When there's conflict, when we don't see each other, when there's a lack of empathy, artists, we tap into our feelings and put it in our art. That art helps the listener tap into their feelings. And that is where all change starts. It's in that connection, in that authenticity, in that vulnerability, in that identity that's true and pure. And music at its best is a facilitator of that, and artists at our best are communicators of that.
It's so cool that Wayna's legacy with the Social Change Grammy has touched so many people, including Chad, who we heard from at the top of this episode. I remember so clearly when Chad's story submission came in, he directly mentioned the new Social Change Grammy, and I was like, oh, Wayna did that.
Right. Wayna from a different season. And she actually presented the Social Change Grammy last year. So I guess they were both at the Grammys together.
Yeah.
And she told me about it recently. So here's my brief conversation with Wayna.
So I've been busy in the studio. I've been traveling. I went to Cairo with the Recording Academy for the announcement of the first ever Grammy House overseas. And I connected with some musicians there and was able to start making some new music with collaborators. But I'm most excited about the new music I'm mixing this month and excited to release it in the summer. I have a song called Wise Ones that I can't wait to share with the world.
So in your story, you had talked about your commitment to music with social commentary. Has that continued in your work?
Absolutely. This is a sort of a subject that evolves with what's happening in the world, and I'm continually inspired by the heart that artists have to engage their work in this way when they're given an incentive to do so and a safe space to do so. And I'm really proud that the Harry Belafonte Best Song for Social Change Award has opened up that opportunity for recognition for artists who do this naturally and want to feel supported in it. And, last year, the award went to one of my favorite artists, Ray, who did a really powerful song about sexual assault called Ice Cream Man. And I was really proud to present that award at the special merit ceremony in Los Angeles the day before the Grammys.
What would you tell other artists who want to make a difference in their work?
I would say be fearless. This is a time in our world history where our role as artists to reflect the times and to reflect the consciousness of the times is more important than ever. And we need to lean into that now more than ever and find our tribe, find our community of people who inspire us, and just continue to flex that muscle, because it is the thing that brings us together and makes us more powerful when our values are being questioned and our identity is being challenged. So this is it. This is the time.
This is the time. If not now, when? It's time for evolution and change.
That's right. Musicians, artists, arts workers, you can make a difference. You are our future.
And Jenny, I'm so sad to have to say this, but this is the end of season 6 of Arts Work Life. Absolutely have loved having you on the show, and it's been so special to take this trip down memory lane. So much has happened in the last 5 years in our lives, in our relationships, and in the lives of our storytellers, and being able to reconnect with them, see their beautiful faces again. It's been incredibly special.
Yeah, thanks, Claire, and thank you for a great season. I've loved being here.
And I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Arts Work Life community. We couldn't do this without you. We love reading all of your feedback, hearing your comments, and we are so appreciative for all your support. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Arts Work Life is a production from APAP, the Association of Performing Arts Professionals. The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the storytellers and not necessarily those of APAP. APAP is the national service organization for the performing arts presenting, booking, and touring industry. You can join APAP at apap365.org. I'm Claire Caulfield, your host and producer. Jenny Thomas is our amazing executive producer, and we always want to give a big thank you to Grace Asuncion. Music for today's episode was from Blue Dot Sessions, Wayna, and Chad Harper. This podcast would not be possible without the generous support of the Wallace Foundation, so thank you for all of your support over the years. Other thank yous to the APAP staff and board of directors, our storytellers today and across all of our seasons, and the hundreds of thousands of arts workers all across the world. Your stories matter, and arts workers are essential.
Arts, work, life. That's real.